Heyo! I'm Raina Harper, and welcome to EveRe-Watch Way, where I podcast a spell that takes a hold of you. This is a show where I'll reminisce and recap the Nickelodeon fantasy series Every Which Way. We'll go episode by episode, at least for now. I'll figure it out with you all, and I'll get into detail on everything related to what happens with the show, what I remember from keeping up with it as a fan back in 2014 and 15, and all the fun knowledge and humor that I can bring in with it. Hope that you like the title of the show. It just came to me recently, and I just figured that it fit the show's spirit, going on top of its own punny title. I hope that you'll enjoy along with me, so give the show a follow to keep up with the series if you enjoy what you hear. Now, let's get into our first episode, Discovery. We get establishing shots of where we're set, beach and overall swanky locale of Miami, Florida. We zoom in on a suburban street where a teenage girl and her father are helping movers bring in numerous boxes to their new house. This girl is Emma Alonso, played by Paula Andino, who's dressed in bright colors underneath a brown jacket and wearing loads of bracelets and rings. And she's carrying a large, even more brightly colored tool case, covered in glittery fabric and butterfly stickers. Instantly taking a shine to it, and wanting to introduce herself, is another girl her age from the neighborhood, dressed in a sleeveless motorcycle-themed shirt, and wearing black and pink spiked bracelets, along with a single purple streak in her hair. We love the visual symbolism showing off what each character is supposed to be like right off the bat. "Hey, nice toolbox," she exclaims. "I have a high-impact, fully gasketed GX150 myself." Emma responds that it's actually for all the scrapbooking and other crafting she's into, and the pink glitter inside is so overpowering that this girl has to shield her eyes, Emma's sheer peppiness startling her. The ice now broken, this girl introduces herself as Andy, played by Daniela Neves, and the two hit it off, the beginning of a beautiful friendship that will bear a lot of chaos together. Andy grabs a moving box to carry, and the bottom falls right out, which anyone who's stocked from the break packs at Walmart will get the feeling. And there's a giant, distinct book that then catches their eyes. When Emma examines it, it starts glowing with a magical, ancient emblem, and she remembers in all this confusion that it belonged to her mother. A swirl of leaves and magical sparks blow around once the book is opened, clearly marking the beginning of a magical destiny. Actually, it's just a guy that had his leaf blower on. Hardy har. Did you have to blow leaves right near them right now? Seriously? Across the street, we see a teenage boy desperately trying to get a pair of stinky socks from the end of a stick into the garbage can, with him and a friend shouting at the boy whose socks they are, that they need to get the stink away from the house, but he frets over losing them. This display from the boy disposing of them clearly catches Emma's eye, perking her up as romantic music plays and they stare at each other, instantly smitten. Butterflies start crowding around Emma, representative of her feelings. But this boy, Daniel, played by Nick Marico, sees them grow into a much larger group, and it starts coming his way. And his friends suddenly notice that he's freaking out, and he's prompted to say, "I'm allergic to them!" Instant cut to the opening credits from there, on that note. This scene doesn't waste any time in establishing what it wants to about the characters and world, I can say that much. There are a few things that really stand out about the theme song. First off, this allergy to butterflies is the first thing represented about Daniel's character in it, so that's beaten into your mind twice in a row in the first minutes of the series. I guess they really wanted to milk those meet-cute hijinks. Second, it visually shows all the main character cliques, which I'll talk about more clearly as we get into them, before we even see most of those characters for the first time. Might have been best to wait to show this opening sequence until the second episode after all these characters are introduced, but on the other hand, this theme song is pretty iconic to my mind with how catchy it feels, so showing it off the bat isn't fatal by any means. Thirdly, and most importantly, I don't think these can even properly be called opening credits, because it just gives the first names of every character, while not listing any of the actors' names. I've never come across another show that does this, even all these years on, so it's slightly distracting. But overall, I do love the cuteness of the yearbook aesthetic with all the stickers. Let's move on. We cut back to Emma, having hidden from the commotion for several minutes, flustered both by the cuteness of the boy she's just seen, and the frightening sudden appearance of many butterflies to match the feeling in her stomach. Andy tells her the coast is clear, and then helps Emma get set up in her new bedroom. She reveals she's on the swim team at Iridium High School with Daniel, and that's also where Emma's set to attend. Emma bids Andy goodbye and thanks when she heads off to a swim meet, and after this, magical occurrences start piling up around Emma in the further unpacking. The fridge opens when she gestures at it and shuts itself in her face. A lamp glows without being plugged in, and a knocked-over vase lightly floats to the ground with a magic poof instead of just crashing. As far as she tries, though, she can't recreate any of these circumstances to try and investigate. Next, we rapidly move in on a palatial house in which three girls are practicing a cheerleading routine. In front, we have the leader, Maddie Van Pelt, played by Paris Smith, whose house it is, and she snaps at fellow cheerleader Sophie for moving the wrong way. In this moment, we get our first taste of the dumbness of Sophie, as she, get this, forgot which way was left, even after Katie, played by Denicia Wilson, marked a giant X on her left hand. Ha! She really takes this character trope to the next level, being the dumb one, into the stratosphere, as we'll see many times. Maddie takes this moment to walk over to the mirror of the giant pink bedroom and remark that the length of their practice has caused her to miss a spa treatment, and her rage really boils up to 11 all of a sudden. She's practically screeching at her underlings by the end of the sentence. At that moment, we get a parallel representation of her feelings to what Emma just saw happen with her own magical phenomenon. A giant gust of wind and thunderstorm appears in her bedroom, blowing up objects and chasing the screaming three of them out of there. Maddie's mother, played by Kate Barbary, seems all too unbothered by there being a weather phenomenon inside their house, and knows instantly that the key to stopping it is telling Maddie to calm herself down. With both that and her remarking, "And so it begins," at what just happened, the girls find her to be acting strangely, like this is something she just knows about somehow. Not ready to explain, though, the mom just gives an excuse on the spot that it was caused by El Niño's brother-in-law, which is just called brother-in-law in Spanish by her, and that gave me a good chuckle. But we also get the first of a recurring bit with the music deflating, as if a cassette winding down when something embarrassing happens. When Sophie remarks that a girl ideally needs to own 399 pairs of shoes, quote, one for every day of the year. I'll stop remarking at every single Sophieism, or we'll be here all day. Meanwhile, Daniel's back in his house, having to be comforted by his friends and father after the allergic reaction scare with the butterflies. They all remark how weird it is that these butterflies just seemingly popped onto the street randomly, but the conversation is cut off by an iMovie sound effect denoting a crash off screen, and the father, played by Jimmy Burnell, realizes what must be going on. Daniel's three younger siblings are up to something again. Indeed, these siblings, Robert, Melanie, and Tommy, played respectively by Louis Tomeo, Jackie Frazee, and Jason Drucker, also known as the Terrible Three, have made a, quote, automatic pancake flipper, and made a complete mess of themselves in the kitchen. A quick look at the scene has eggs visibly put into the blender by them, and throughout the time that the father scolds and grounds them, they're each hiding multiple eggs behind their back. A babysitter needs to be found due to Daniel having a swim meet that day, and every other babysitter they know has blacklisted their house, so they have to ask Daniel's girlfriend, Maddie. I wonder how that one started. They won't be together for long, though, don't worry. Maddie shows up for the babysitting gig and acts with characteristic rudeness that the family seems used to. As they leave, Daniel tries to kiss her out of thanks, but she holds up her arm and counters lip gloss. It quickly becomes a question of who will have the worst time, her or the Terrible Three, as Maddie sneaks Sadie and Sophie in after the family leaves, and they enlist the children to give them the spa treatment that they're missing. The girls enlist the T3 for their labor at this babysitting job, and the T3 mess up the whole house with the mud from Maddie's bath, and the girls are unaware. Perfectly balanced, as all things should be. Daniel and Andy show up with their team, the Sharks, at their swim meet, and are heckled by their rivals, the Dolphins. The guy in front remarks that their teammate Mac, played by Maverick Moreno, awesome name by the way, never showers, and teases that their, quote, best swimmer is a girl, charming, and their leader Daniel can't even take on a pack of wild butterflies. Andy snaps that she wants to, quote, put lead in his bathing suit. A, what does she mean by that? Like, I know she wants to make him sink, but is she gonna sew pieces of lead into it? And B, do you think she actually has pieces of lead on hand to put into a bathing suit? I wouldn't put it past her, honestly, given how much she loves tools. Anyway, the Sharks hype themselves up, and they're off to the races, literally. We get a montage cutting between the swim meet going on and the T3 making a mess around the makeshift spa in Daniel's house, until Daniel's parents get home and are angry to discover what's going on. Daniel gets on Maddie's case for not being trustworthy in what he asked her to do, saying that she could have done anything to keep them busy other than what she did, including, quote, teach them how to multiply. And I'm thinking, yeah, that would have gone well. Have you met your siblings, Daniel? Maddie responds with what we find out is her usual manipulation. Flip the blame on him as making her feel unappreciated, and just break up with him on the spot with the intent that it's just a dramatic moment of expression for her, and the expectation that he'll just take her back once her mood clears up. This has evidently happened quite a few, if not dozens of times before, and Daniel's clearly getting fed up with this nonsense. Emma's father, Francisco, played by Renee Lavan, notices Emma acting strangely, as she's still trying to recreate the weird occurrences by wildly gesturing at the fridge. She acts coy about it, but then approaches her father with suspicions that the new house might be haunted, listing all the things that had happened. Francisco responds with simple, Occam's razor explanations, like that a tilt of the house might have caused the fridge to open. Emma didn't mention the snapping shut part. The slow falling of the vase might have just been something Emma perceived in a moment of panic, but he notices that the light does indeed glow without being plugged in, and spooks Emma as he walks towards her with it in a look of being spooked himself, but says that it just has battery backup power. Great bit there, Dad. And calms Emma down on her suspicions, for the moment anyway. At school the next day, Andy excitedly tells Emma that the Sharks won their swim meet and mentions that her crush, Daniel, wasn't too damaged by the butterfly experience. Emma is embarrassed and shushes her, but Andy says to relax as there's no one around to overhear, unless the school's very overbearing gossip, Misinformation, whose real name is Gigi, played by Zoe Berger, is eavesdropping. She grabs her tablet from her locker to show Emma the widely read and comprehensive misinformation blog covering everyone's business. And side note, both the locker and the tablet are decked out with every novelty duct tape design you can think of. One covered with mustaches, one with space aliens, and some pieces of just orange and green duct tape all over everything. It really stood out to me and made me feel nostalgic for when you used to see mustaches on everything as decoration and all those funny duct tape designs. Funny thing, side note over. Anyway, Andy is able to just look up a misinformation profile on any student. So she picks someone out from the hallway, a street magic loving kid named Tony, played by Kendall Ryan Sanders, and reads out the things he likes, math, Sudoku, and street magic, and his dislikes, snow days, not having homework, and arugula, which you'd think he'd like, or at least say he does, eating his veggies, if he's such a buttoned-down student in every other way. These are the things I think of, everyone. She then pulls up the page about Maddie's rich and popular girl group, the Panthers, who the blog says rule the school. A group of 3 rich, popular girls who have the clique name that starts with P. I wonder if that could be a riff on anything. Stay away from them, is Andy's warning to Emma. Cut to the Panthers walking in the typical formation, Maddie making a random kid faint by blowing a kiss. And in this moment, we also see a wide swath of the blue, orange, and tan shirts, blazers, and skirts that make up the Iridium High School uniforms. Many different styles, all iconic. Emma is given her schedule and other forms in the office by an admin, and upon being left alone for a moment, sees and marvels at yet another butterfly appearing from inside her backpack, with a bit of the obvious dumbfoundedness. Is that a word? I don't know. Of course, who would come in to show her around at that moment but Daniel, making his presence known with a sneeze, and Emma's startled enough to knock over a pen canister. They both bend over to pick them up, and in the obligatory way, they lean back up with their eyes locked on each other. You're Emma, right? How do you know? Emma asks, absent-mindedly not noticing she's holding a form with her name on top in his eyeline. I'm assigned to show you around. They have a bit of flirtatious introduction, interrupted by more sneezing from Daniel, which only increases Emma's anxiety, which manifested the butterflies that are making him sneeze. Ah! Daniel asks if there are any butterflies in the room. Emma says, definitely not. In that moment, there's a butterfly inches in front of Daniel's eyes. A little funny error there, or maybe Daniel is super nearsighted. Oh, and Daniel sneezes directly in Emma's face. Dude, come on now. You better make up that one fast if you have any interest in her. Emma runs away in embarrassment and bumps directly into Maddie. Oh boy, this scene is so funny. It's one of the very first things I always remember about this show, and top 5 moments in it as a whole. They fall over, and Maddie drops her smoothie. It looks like she's drinking straight Pepto-Bismol, it's so pink. And they both gesture at it in what would be an attempt in vain to grab it out of the air, but their simultaneous actions make it levitate, and they look at each other in confusion. Then it crashes to the ground, and it shows a real spill in front of it at first, but then cuts to a seemingly a pickup shot, which shows the cup rolling to the side, and it's done on a green screen. It's animated really unnaturally quickly for about half a second, and that just really stuck out to me from the very first time I saw it. It's so weird. Maddie gets up to lament her fallen drink, and gives a truly amazing and cheesy delivery of, "My smoothie!" Another rage-induced storm of hers appears, causing wind and rain to appear in the hallway. Daniel rushes over to comfort Emma, and the sheer sight of him being slightly friendly towards this girl that she's just met sets Maddie off further, and she jumps to jealous conclusions out of spite. Daniel, are you with her? She starts to spat over Daniel being her boyfriend, is told that he's her ex, and then Emma hilariously interrupts with the obvious absurdity of it being a rainstorm inside the hallway. Have you forgotten? Maddie then storms off, and Daniel remarks that this is normal for being around Maddie. I suppose these things have happened just to a lesser extent throughout Maddie's life. Do you think she might have magical powers? Just maybe. Call it a hunch. While Daniel finishes showing Emma around, and he and Emma have some adolescent flirty interactions, glad the storm made the butterflies and sneezing memories go away, Maddie resolves revenge on this new girl in her midst. An accidental rhyme, As we'll see, rhymes are what spells are made of. During her rant, makes Katie's hair magically become blue, which freaks Katie out when she notices, but Sophie just takes it in her stride, and Maddie puts it on top of the weird pile of things that have happened in the last day. Emma learns from Daniel that he's involved in loads of sports, and she tells him that she's no athlete herself, unless one considers scrapbooking a sport, which is just a cute line. Maddie butts in and declares that Emma needs to step away from her boyfriend, and after Emma leaves due to the awkwardness, Daniel has reached his last nerve and declares that her fake breakups won't happen anymore on his watch. Their relationship is done for good. Maddie seethes and eventually screams, punctuated by all the lockers magically blasting open. When Maddie comes home, Maddie's mom greets her while inside Maddie's closet and trying on her heels. The mom seemingly has a desire to live her life vicariously through Maddie's youth. It's a thing. But once she hears a hint of the new girl at school being connected to magical occurrences, she insists on finding out more. And once Maddie tells her she knows where this new girl lives... Wait, when did you find this out, Maddie? Trust me, we never see that scene. Though it's not hard to guess, she probably just made a point of sneaking in and getting that info from the front office. But either way, her mom is on a one-track mind now to find out more. She resolves to bring Maddie and make introductions to the Alonsos with a pie to be neighborly. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer, she says to Maddie, obviously a fan of The Godfather Part 2. They go over, and an awkward scene ensues of Maddie's mom desperately trying to make passes at Emma's dad. Hi, I'm Francisco, and I'm divorced. Ursula. How fitting that she has the name of a sea witch with a creep factor. Maddie and Emma are forced to interact, the latter taking the opportunity to grandstand more and threaten Emma, while the adults make small talk. We find out that Emma's mom passed away after giving birth, and Maddie loudly says, "Awkward," in a sing-song way. Ursula tries to get at the topic of books Emma's mom might have owned, clearly trying to get at the glowing book from earlier. Eventually, Maddie insists on the two leaving, and they do, thank God. Can you tell I really don't like this dynamic Ursula brings in? Maddie then tries to cool off by calling Daniel, but he just finds these rings a distraction to him and his friends studying. His best friend Diego, played by Tyler Alvarez, tells him to just switch it off, and Maddie commiserates with the Panthers about not being able to get through. Andy later comes over for a sleepover at Emma's new house, and Emma sees that she brought over boxing gloves and a hockey stick for activities. Andy's so funny, one of my favorite characters, honestly. Seeing that her ideas for activities won't go over well, she lets Emma pick what they do first, and Emma ghoulishly smiles, after which the scene transitions to Andy being given a face mask, painted nails, and rollers in her hair. I'll leave you to think whether Andy likes this situation or not. Another accidental rhyme happens, with Emma recounting the awkward situation with the Van Pelts, and a hairbrush just appears from nowhere in front of them. They scream and clutch at each other in scared confusion. Hal Landino's facial expressions are the best, by the way. They're so entertaining in this episode to start, and it was still the case when I saw her in Lisa Frankenstein this year. The two of them try and calm down by thinking happy thoughts. Andy's happy thoughts include zombies, great white sharks, hockey games, her toolbox, and more zombies, while Emma's list rhymes balloons and sweet tarts with puppies and pink hearts. And guess what happens? All of those things magically appear in the closet, minus the puppies, that would have been a production nightmare, and spill out over the floor, making it irrefutably clear that something supernatural is going on, minus Emma's attempts to rationalize it as movers having left those things. I know, right? Anything but magic powers. Andy is reminded of her grandmother telling her about witches as a child, and though Emma is skeptical, she's authoritatively told by Andy a massive conclusion. She's definitely a witch. And with that, our episode ends. Thanks for listening to our inaugural episode of EveRe-Watch Way. What happens next with all these characters? I might know, but do I even remember all this rightly? We'll see for sure when we pick up next time with episode 2, and I've enjoyed doing this so much. Whether you've been into the Every Which Way show like me, or if you're new to this material, then by all means, give this a follow, like, review, comment, and tell people that you know, or spread the word via social media. At EveRe-Watch Way Podcast, that's EveRe-Watch Way Podcast on Instagram, and at the EveRe-Watch Way Podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And again, thank you for listening, and best magical wishes.